Intel is terrible.
Intel is what you make it. Like, you know, it depends entirely on how deep you want to go on the Intel field.
I mean, McLeod should have got the joke, but I'm actually appalled you didn't.
Oh, fuck, I missed it. Well, hang on, say it. Fuck it, I don't care.
My comment was Intel is terrible. Talking about Intel in general.
Yeah, AMD is
yeah
right now.
Hey. Any of you boys seen a Keepstar around here anywhere?
A what?
Keepstar around here anywhere?
What? FC, what are Keepstars?
Keepstar?
Nah, computer says no.
No, sorry.
No,
you know what I need on my
early.
desk?
Too early.
If we would have been smart, right? We could have done that whole thing, and I could have had one of those little desk bells going, ding, thank you for playing. But no, we weren't that good. So hello everybody in the audience. Intel's not probably what you think they were thinking about. I have to share. It is my 55-month sub anniversary.
I apologize there, but I was slow.
Slow yes.
On the uptick there.
So true. We're coming to you live through Ashburn, Virginia, which is always where we route through because we don't like Chicago, Illinois, because it's a crazy town.
I mean, Chicago, yeah. Yeah.
It's
fucking Chicago, man.
So we're sitting here going, anyway, I unlocked an emote for 55 months. Wow, that's pretty good. That's pretty cool. So, fantastic. So
not
today we're going to crash and burn, or we're not. I want to tell everybody we have Sothracel with us here today. We got Mifune. Is it Mifune or Mifune, or how do you pronounce it?
Usually it's Mifune is
Mifune.
the correct pronunciation, but people like Dave Archer just say MILF because they have no idea how to pronounce it.
MILF?
That's what Dave Archer calls me.
I'm really
you wait till Boat starts saying a name. You wait till Boat starts trying to say your name.
And all the anime people and Japanese culture inclined will be strongly offended to that fact.
By the way, today's show is sponsored by Michelob Ultra, just in case anybody was wondering. So,
yeah.
And my wonderful wife, who brought me the beer pre-show.
Yay!
As well as a nice San Pellegrino little water. So, she's awesome. Oh, look.
I think if we
Soth,
had
there was a door for you. Did you hear that?
Yay, Soth.
I will never oil that door. So, hey, folks, we got an interesting and original show. Anything that we want to go over before we go into our weird, strange, interesting show that either will work or just suck and we'll only have part 1 and no part 2?
I just noticed something. Well, I think they are called Keepstars because Tess is too bad to kill them.
We get to keep them.
Wow.
I like that. Can we have a golf clap for South? That was excellent. That was most excellent. We need that. We need like a golf clap little thing for something that goes really well in the show. I really like that.
Yes, well, Soft, let's be real. Tess didn't get to keep their stars in the Arja in the week.
So...
I'm sorry to do that. I'm sorry.
We don't get to call them Keepstars if they are owned by Test or NC.
No, I said they don't get to keep their stars.
Oh,
referring to the Arja.
Right.
All right, so we have nothing to go over.
So Bart is like on fire. I am like everyone else is like being super slow today. Yeah,
I am super slow because you had to explain me. The computer says no. So, and by the way, Caleb and McLeod did this beautiful computer says no thing. So of course we have to keep it up because, art.
Because low effort memes, right, that are good, are actually quality content, but they have to be really good, like that one.
It's art.
Caleb, didn't you see my meme on Reddit earlier this week? My 10-minute low effort meme.
Which
Yeah,
one
but
was that?
God,
It's a
yeah,
it was a guy holding a giant shotgun, and he goes, "Where the f are these dinosaurs hiding?" And I put a little picture of the bee on the face.
oh, that was you. That was pretty cool. I like that.
I had to move chat around so that when I'm looking at the camera, I can look at chat rather than going over here. And so I had to rearrange my screen because I think this is going to be a big chat involvement day, which is kind of cool. I kind of like that. So, oh, by the way, let's start and remind Barbald, subscribe with Prime, 4 months. Thank you, Barbald. Got to look at my camera, right? And then we had 2 follows from Light Surfer and Jasm Switch, I guess. How you say that, maybe? I don't know. And so I think that's all the pre-show stuff. Does everyone get reimbursed for the node crashing yesterday? I don't know.
No.
And then, again, we need the bell. Ding. Thank you for playing.
I mean, look, I get
Next.
that people are pissed, right? But
I just scanned that Arendis joined us, so
Oh, hello,
hi,
Arendis.
I'm sorry. I tried to get on earlier, but NC Dot smart bomb Dave Archer, and that was just it.
Hold it. I have a limited time to earn exclusive emotes, it's telling me. The hype.
reading
It's a hype train thing.
Okay, whatever that is. I'm good.
I know you've not seen this before because we rarely get to hype train situation here on Push to Talk. But yeah,
What
it's
is
a
the
thing,
hype
Eric.
train? Hey, Sother,
It's basically you unlock It's basically the more kind of like donations and like subs and all that kind of stuff. Like you unlock some more emotes and stuff like that.
All right.
Thanks, Ruth.
Oh, cheers! Oh, thanks. Hey, so let's. Do we want to? Arendis, did you come for something else, or did you come to participate in the flaming of the show, the dying of the show? This isn't really going to work.
Is it?
I don't know. We're going to try something. We're going to see.
Well, just remember, if everything crashes, go on Reddit and blame goons.
There you go.
Gons. At Gons.
All right. Should I explain what we're doing?
But the little people.
Yes, do the
All right.
team thing.
All right. Here's what we're
Explain
going to do.
the
Here's
team
what we're
we
going
have to do.
You all are involved. You guys on stream chat. You guys here in our on the air chat. You're all involved. And Apple Pair just joined.
Hi, what's going on?
So basically, we're going to identify you guys, and I'm going to ask questions and things like that. If you needed to build Eve, okay? If you needed to build Eve tomorrow, today, whatever, what are the things that you need to consider that are challenges within the game, within the infrastructure, within anything, within doing business, advertising, anything? How would you do it differently? And what do you need to do? So basically, what are the pain points? And if you could do certain things, your life would be better and your players' lives would be better. You'd have a better product to sell. Okay? We're not going to talk about technology. We're not going to talk about game design. We're talking about things that need to be better in the game.
This is like
So
guess
you
what
can't
Eric
say
is
here's what's
thinking.
out of scope. You can't say we're going to design a better sob system. Okay? What you can say is, hey, we've got things that happen in the game, and we need to be able to manage them better. So, for instance, I'll give you an instance. So, do all the cycles that you use calculating and working on planetary interaction need to happen in a system going through the same queue as everything else that happens in the system? So, to differentiate that, you would say, well, we have things that go on in our systems that, can be shifted out of the main game engine, right? How would we do that, right? That's a pain point. We have too much going on in our system. How can we fix that?
Okay. I'm going to pick this up with one that I already read. Multi-thread capability.
Well, it's not just multi-thread
'Cause
capability. It's
I
literally
have
just
one
like
field for my field
Before
bingo.
you even start, I'm going to shoot you down there because I don't think 95% of you even understand what you're talking about. The game logic needs to run on one thread, right? Because
breaking it up into multiple threads means that there can be exceptions and there can be conflicts.
No,
and first of all,
but
the
okay.
game logic, if the game logic runs on multiple threads, it still needs to access the same data. That doesn't work.
Doesn't matter.
Right? Because
Doesn't matter.
only one thread at a time can manipulate the data.
Incorrect, but okay.
I think my comment would be that I would make sure that information that might be important to a client should be pushed somewhere where it's not necessarily important to the server actually running something right now. So whether you're talking about calculations like you're mentioning things like PI, and then there's bounty systems and all that bullshit, kill mails as well, right? There's many things that I would make sure gets pushed to something where it is almost completely independent of the server running the activities in space. So basically, let's say the kill mail server ended up dead, right? Just for the sake of argument, or bounty system information was suddenly unavailable. It shouldn't mean anything to what is going on in a fight.
So I'll give you a really good example of what I'm talking about. The chat
hold
system isn't on the main server, right? It's segregated.
Right.
So your concept is those things that aren't necessarily interconnected within a server system right now, that's a solar system, right, need to be pushed off and need to be written a different way. That doesn't mean everything can be, but it means some things. And I'm not talking about multi-threading, and I'm not talking about sharding or any of that stuff yet. That's a future conversation.
You mean like what
Higher
they
level.
did
Higher level.
with the chat
Yeah.
servers, right?
Yeah, and sorry to cut you off, Horrendous, please.
Okay, so higher level, as Eric just
We're high
said.
level here today.
I'm gonna go even higher. I'm gonna fix all of Eve's problems. Ready?
Yeah.
First, you get Jeff Bezos' money, then you hire about 100 programmers to make this shit work. There.
No, because AWS doesn't work that well. Go ahead, try again.
He does,
I didn't say his technology.
I'm gonna correct
I said his
something
money.
there.
You
He
said
does
his
have
And
money.
there is some
Yeah,
technology they have
you're
on offer.
talking about. Yeah, you're talking about technology, Eric. You said it's you know, specifically that we're not talking tech.
No, you're talking.
But Eric,
what you're going to
but
say is
Eric.
Yes.
If you want to know what we think, you need to let us talk, okay?
Okay, I'm just
He
trying
does
to have
have
a
a point.
conversation.
Because if you actually look at how many people at CCP are actually coding, right?
Right.
And not dealing with any other shit,
Like,
that number is very small.
No, again, that's not. You're going to say we need these high level things today. And we need to consider these high level things, not how we're going to solve them. Right? You can say, hey, we have things in the game that are not necessarily intertwined that take away from the core thing that we want to do. Right?
Yeah, yes, Eric, but you need to look at why the number of actual people who code and design gameplay elements
I'm not-
are that small.
I'm not
it is
fixing
because there are
CCP.
so many. You need to fix CCP to be able to fix the game.
And not to poo-poo on CCP, and just to mention that, Eric, you also have to pay attention to the fact that Arendis follows all your rules to the letter, right?
Yes.
And then you shot him down. So just to mention,
No.
the other one is, if you look at the thing with CCP, they have let way too many of the talents that could actually code go, and they don't seem to have
So
replaced
we're going to
them
summarize
properly.
those two things by saying, okay, we need to make sure that we have the appropriate staff with the appropriate skill sets in the right places, right? That's a big
Yeah,
point,
that's a fair one.
right? That's how we're going to address that, right? So we're going to say, hey, you got to make sure, bottom up, you've got the right staff with the right skill set in the right positions, right?
But that's not
So-
how Thief
so-
happened.
Yeah,
but it
I don't
is.
I don't understand why or how this is like in any way helpful. Because then, if that's just basically like, you know, the wording that requires,
Yeah, I mean, at
you
that
know,
point,
us
we're
to
just saying,
fix it, then we can just
so
basically
should-
go like we should be able we should code everything to basically solve any situation that we have,
Right.
and resolve any kind of issues with any size of player base be it one person or
Re-
two people, or
Yeah, I mean,
10
if you're gonna-
trillion.
Reposition yourselves.
if you're
Pretend
gonna
doing this.
if you're gonna go ahead
ridiculous.
and abstract this to management buzz speak,
Mhm.
then all it becomes is, so we need to allocate the right resources to adequately meet the challenges that we face.
Yes, but bear with me around this. I'm
That
just
was good
guiding you
call,
guys
Steve.
down a path right now. All right. So this is part one. Let's identify the things. Pretend you guys are CCP, and you're telling me what your pain points are in the game, and you need it solved.
Okay, if I'm
So-
CCP, the first problem I'm running into is I don't know.
But that's a
mean,
valid
that's-
problem.
You're
You
not
don't
wrong.
know- you don't know what you
That's
don't
beautiful.
know. That's one of the things that you put on the whiteboard, right? But you have
The
other
second,
pain
Alright.
points, right?
The second one.
Would
the second
you-
one, Eric.
Horrendous. I just want to give a moment there because horrendous. That was just like
Golf
beautiful
clap?
in so
Golf
many
clap?
ways because it was so elegant as well.
Golf
I'm,
clap?
I'm just going to point out that there's the other thing that's really important and that we rarely end up talking about. It is the fact that CCP code is older than most people's cars.
Right. So you have an issue with, but you're building a new system, right? That's the prefix here. You're not
Caleb.
necessarily fixing your old code. You need to know what you're gonna build new.
So the
I'm
first.
sorry,
the
I'm going to
first-
jump in here quick.
No, absolutely not. The problem is that CCP is just always running after the problems instead of getting ahead of them, because they just don't have enough people to deal with it. They need to actually focus on problems because they don't have enough manpower to take care of all the problems. They don't even have the manpower to take care of a fraction of the problems. So they have to tell us things like, oh yeah, like these are the problems that we really want to solve. Let's see how many of them we can do. That was officially what CCP told us.
Let me pose something to you a little differently. What's the
fix my
biggest
audio
group
first?
of users that you? I think you're fine, Caleb, but talk again real quick.
Well,
before I
people
keep-
are saying that I'm way too low compared to the rest of the stream, so I don't know how that happened.
Well, we
That's
do that
usually the
intentionally
opposite.
'cause we don't
Otherwise,
really
I'm going
like
to
you.
shift back to my old mic.
Well,
Also, just remember that Salt is always shouting.
how about this? Try this again. Go ahead, talk again,
Yeah,
Caleb.
yeah, it's fine. I'll
Is that
figure it
better?
out.
I turned you up on my Discord. So anyway, so let me do it a different way, right? You have a problem that, as a company, CCP, is it of value to you if you're able to have more people in a single fight?
Well, of course it is. The point and the problem
And-
to CCP right now, because you're putting up that scenario where if we're going to rebuild Eve, and I just hate that question because it's so theoretical.
What is
and
it
it's
that you want to
completely-
do?
Well, the problem is that what they need to do is they need to figure out a very efficient way of solving the problems that are in this old code stuff, right? And I think they have been trying quite well and pretty decently recently, right? But as Soth points out, you can't do it without manpower because you basically need like three,
Remember the preface.
Let me
Caleb.
finish. Let me finish.
You, not you telling CCP. You are CCP. What's your pain
Yeah,
point, Caleb?
I would make sure that I hired more people, exactly like Soth is hinting at, because you need someone like CCP Signal, people that actually have enough of a skill set and enough of an understanding of how these things work and have the balls to go in there and dig in the spaghetti code, as we tend to call it, to actually figure out how can we work around this and solve some of the issues so we can future-proof this product. And that's really difficult. But they have done a few things. They started this way back when they started doing the transplant thing, right? When they cut out necrotic tissue like the in-game browser, which was a waste of assets. Then they cut out things like, I think also they removed EveGate. Then they took the chat system and moved it to the cloud. They've done many things to improve this, right? And then they still have a problem with figuring out how to get that cancerous growth called postcode out of there, because when they tried last, it completely killed the game, right?
Again, you're too deep in the weeds for today, right? It's you have problems that you perceive, and you need to solve them, and you need to equate value to those solutions, right? So the question is really, I'm saying to you, would more people in a fight have value to you as a company?
Of course.
Not how
Well,
to solve
okay,
it.
first
not
off,
cutting
though-
the code though.
First off, though, Eric, I think you're getting ahead of yourself and the postulates you're proposing.
Go ahead.
You're saying if you're CCP and you're gonna rebuild Eve,
Mhm.
if that's your base assumption, then I think the first problem you have to run into and solve is, what exactly is it I'm trying to build?
Well, that's what I'm asking you, but everybody
No,
keeps trying
no,
to
that's
fix.
that's the first thing you need to answer. That's your first problem.
Horrendous.
What game am
You're-
I actually building?
That's what you guys are supposed to be answering here. Absolutely.
Y-
What
yes,
do you
but
want to
Eric-
do? What are your pain points that you perceive based on your experience with Eve? And you want to recreate Eve without those pain points. What are those pain
Eric,
points that
so-
you
Well,
want to
then
solve?
what am I trying to recreate?
I'm gonna,
Because honestly, what is Eve?
Yeah, which Eve are we recreating? Are we recreating the one from 16 years ago?
I mean,
where
this
everyone
is-
was just mining?
I don't know. What do you
Are we
guys want to do?
recreating-
I'm gonna
asking you.
interject. I'm gonna say something here. So as CCP, right, in the mindset that I'm CCP and I have all these problems with my game, and it's just that, you know, you can point out that the code's 15 years old. You can point out that the servers are broken, whatever. But the main problem is that I have a game, it's old and it's broken. How do I fix it? Step one, like Soth pointed out, get more employees, fresh blood, people that know what the hell they're doing and how to do it. And then once you have that problem solved, then you encounter the problem of what are we going to do to solve these issues. And then that's when you get into those higher topics of whether or not you want to recode the game in its entirety, try to fix the old broken code, or maybe, who knows, just slowly but surely rebuild the game and just kind of get rid of shuffle through the spaghetti code, pick out what you need, take out the basics, and then in 10, 15 years, they'll have a brand new Eve number 2. But that takes a lot of manpower, a lot of money that they don't have, an incredible amount of resources, patience, and then you have the player base of Eve trying not to kill themselves with how much they want to die.
Let me re-baseline this for you, okay? You guys are building Eve. You are not CCP, okay? But you have seen CCP's pain points. You know pain points in the game, and you want to build something. What do you need to make sure that you don't do the same mistakes they do? Number one, you're going to try and figure out as upper level here where you're at what
Fucking
you're
time
gonna
machine?
do, what you're going to do, okay? Then you're going to build the staff around that, but that's a later question. What are your true business-oriented pain points with trying to deliver entertainment to your customers?
Oh,
Now
I have
you
an important one. I have an important one that many
Okay.
of you might actually not realize and understand or remember. Pick one. Back in the day when Eve actually launched, it had some very unique designs. And one of the things that CCP consistently allowed was that the player base diversified, that there was someone that came out on top and actually won, someone that was ahead, someone that was doing things in ways that gave them an edge, almost a monopoly or the equivalent of a monopoly. They allowed things that would be considered griefing in other game environments because it doesn't give everyone their consolation prize and the feeling of being superior. This is what they succeeded on. This is why Eve was different than any other game from day one. They allowed things like that to develop. And that is one thing I would definitely have on my paper saying, I will not interfere with emergent gameplay.
Can I address two things? First thing I'm going to recommend, if we're looking back and we're going to do a fix stuff that CCP never fixed, comment the fucking code. Right? We got to learn
Well,
somewhere.
you're pretty
But the
certain.
second
I'm
one,
pretty, well, I mean,
I
yeah.
want-
Well,
That's
they
a
normally do that now.
that's a time machine argument, right? Because it's it wasn't done, so you can't do anything about it.
Well,
And
no.
it
If Eric's saying you're not CCP, but you want to build a new Eve, That becomes a completely different question. That's not a time machine
True,
issue.
true. That's make sure that
pretend
the
you're in
people are doing
China,
that
nothing,
from the beginning.
There's no copyright laws. You're just going to break them all. You're going to build Eve bigger, better, badder, $6 million man, whatever.
Okay, well, the first
The
thing I
same
would
with
do
infinite
is
money and
I would
infinite
find a better
resources.
idea than build Eve.
Yeah.
Wow, shots fired.
No,
Yeah.
because Eve's very nature is one where the players that you're going for are going to need to be fairly intelligent, fairly adventurous. They're going to need to be the people who break things. And if you want to be a successful company, you want to appeal to as many people as possible with a product that's as reliable as possible. And that's not the game you get if you're appealing to players who like to break things.
Because Eve was never designed and put together. It was never a project to just make money. Because if you are trying to make money, like, especially at the time when Eve was being created, right? Like, that was not the way to make money. Like, Eve was a passion project by a few people who had limited resources and limited time. The reason why the code was not, hadn't been like commented the way that it should have been was because of time and because of resources.
Yeah, when you're doing
and lack of
stuff,
talent.
that
Honestly,
so
let's address.
So yeah,
it was also a little bit of a lack of talent. The people that started out doing
you didn't have the money to basically.
They had talent in many aspects, but the coding was not really the best.
Because you had limited resources, and that limited resources also means limited staffing resources with limited skills and limited money to be able to hire in the talent that could have been better, right? That's the idea of limited resources.
So I'll give you another example, right? So that the game engine benefited from pulling the chat streams out of the core engine and segregate them, very similar to a microservice, right? And putting them on AWS. Do you think that you have other portions of this game that would benefit from those same types of strategies?
Yeah,
like modularity is king.
I'm just
like
asking.
It may not. Like modularity is king. Like the only reason, like modularity only like the reason why modularity is king in a system that is like constantly requiring upkeep and stuff is because you can pull it apart and and update it, every single aspect of it. If you're making like a unified singular kind of thing, that for example like Apple's making an iPhone, right? Then in order to make that product, you can't make it modular because it has to be very very efficient in what it does. But the nice thing about that is you go on, you make a brand new version of that next year and the year after and the year after that, but you need to have the ability to be able to do that. If you're making something that is quintessentially fucking massive like Eve, then you need to make it modular because you can't refresh the entire thing every year. You need to kind of be able to pull it apart and refresh small parts of it, throughout the year.
Yeah, they do fairly well with the graphics engines and things of that nature. But when you look at that, right? If you look at what you're single threading today, right? If you want to make your single threaded required things, let's assume there are, okay, go faster. You only have two ways to do that, right? You offload other things that are causing more traffic through that pipe to other systems, or you get a faster CPU, right? And the faster CPU is a little more challenging. Now remember too, they're sitting on a VMware environment, right? So they're sitting on ESXi clusters, right? So a CPU isn't a CPU in that infrastructure, right? A CPU is a thread in the VMware environment, right? So when you look at that, you have that challenge, right? So you've got to sit there and say, what needs to go down a single channel today in our infrastructure and what doesn't? So what can we break out, right? So what are those things that we think would be advantageous to do?
Well, and just to get back to not go too deep into the weeds, this is also why it's kind of interesting that we get something launched like Eve Echoes right now, because that's kind of doing exactly what you're asking, right? Your theoretical question about making a game from scratch is exactly what they're doing. So we're going to basically see what parts of that succeeds and what parts will fail. And I do think that CCP is definitely keeping an eye on that, specifically for the purpose that you're putting out there, Eric.
Well, but that's a different architecture, right? Than what you're looking at. By the way, completely viable, because that's on a platform that a lot of the younger folks are on, right? So completely viable. But I think if you look deeply, right? Do you have something that is valuable to you as a company if you could split things out and create more people in a fight, right? And then how do you do that, right? That's a future conversation, right? A future show. But what are those things that we would like to do to make it better? Assume that you have a good SOB system. Assume you have good things out there. You just want to make them better. What are those things that would really set EVE apart as a game?
Get rid of the daily login rewards because they were complete and utter bull to increase player counts.
Yeah, that's not really. I mean, look at this from
Also, that's not going to happen because they work.
Yeah, you're gonna. I mean, that doesn't help you do things, right? What helps you make the game bigger and more robust?
So you need a way of being able to essentially control like the exponential growth of information that you need to send to people's like clients. The more people interact. Like I know that when you add more people to interact with each other, like it will happen. It will kind of naturally happen exponentially because more people there, more people need to know about more things, and so those sorts of things start to grow in an exponential function. But like at some point, certain things don't need to be communicated and become low priorities, and you kind of you should be able to like put together a system that basically manages that and basically says like at this particular point, this system is like the lowest priority, so it gets knocked off kind of thing.
So if they don't have it today,
and manage that,
an ability to manage the amount of information that needs to come from the server to the clients, the many clients, manage that, mitigate it, reduce it, make it better, right? For instance, right, if your client's sitting there and it's trying to follow 5,000 fighter groups, right, coming across the screen, that's a whole lot more volume coming to your client than if you had to manage one.
Well, it needs to be able to streamline and simplify the information that it's working with.
Right. And
what about if you would, I don't know.
I don't need to know about bounties, for example.
Well, yeah.
In a null-sec tie-dye fight.
Yes, but that's why you get that error. That's why you get the bounty errors, because they are just shutting off the system in heavy tie-dye fights.
Well, they keep on. There's a lot of them to shut off. It seems.
Yes, there is. So they are already doing that.
I mean, my particular, core kind of list had a fucking load of them, to be completely honest. So they must have a lot of redundant, bounty and systems that they had to shut off. Let's put it that way.
Let me put it this way. To the guy saying they were not shut down yesterday. If you actually tell CCP that there's a huge fight going to happen in the system, then they are shutting it off.
They did.
Yeah, and this takes us back to the fact that we can't, in this forum, or most likely in any forum, really solve the CCP problem. That is a CCP-only problem. And we know that they're working on it. We know they're trying to improve it. And we know this was, at least, we've been told this was a fluke. This was not something that was expected to happen.
So, hold on.
Look, the last I heard...
What was not...
The last I heard... Yeah, okay, go for it. What was
not?
I was done. What? Well, okay. The point is that this was not something that could be predicted, because something is most likely either broken recently. It could be a hardware problem. It could be anything. The point is, this is not your standard DDoSing of the servers and completely killing it on load only. Something else went wrong yesterday, because everything that we saw was within the limits of what we are grown accustomed to, right? So from everything we knew, this should not have happened. And CCP came out and said, something's wrong, something is broken, we don't know exactly what it is, but it should definitely not have happened like that. So we're pretty much waiting for the post-mortem, right? And the actual report coming back. Okay, it could be the storms, it could be many things that's been recently added to the servers, and there have been a bit of weird hiccups and load issues where there must be something in there right now that is not properly quality tested and that is clashing with everything else. So when we get that post-mortem, it's likely that this will be an easy fix. It could be a tough fix. I don't know. Maybe they won't even tell us what went wrong. But it was not the NC smart bombs. It was not the number of people in chat. It was not the chat flooding. It was nothing like that caused this. And we just have to acknowledge that. And doing this whole old school tinfoiling, it's just not helping.
Yeah, we're not, and we're trying not to do that here. We're trying to say
okay. So Eric, like so the equivalent of like maybe the equivalent of like what happened, like a few years ago or whatever, like that, like well, maybe not a few years ago, a few years ago, like when we were invading, when CFC was invading Fountain, taking it from Test. We had the situation where we caught like basically almost the entirety of Test's capital fleet, and the servers suddenly just died. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys like remember why that fucking happened? Right?
Let's just go, because we have people
Fighters.
who may not know in the audience. Right?
No, it wasn't fighters. It wasn't anything to do with that. They were reprioritizing low-key systems off the node, and someone accidentally typed in the wrong one, which was the system that the fight was taking place. So the system basically moved over, and so it cut the connection to everybody, and basically gave a free escape to to Test. So it's basically just like unforeseen situation occurs.
That's human error, right? And
yeah,
or
it's not quite...
this recent time could well have been human error as well. It just took a little bit longer, for the system to sort of go through and process that human error into an exception that fucking dropped the server.
And so
yes, it was definitely human error, but just because you wanted to get relatively precise about what happened, it wasn't that they entered the name of a system wrong and entered in the name of the system they wanted. It's that they used a batch command to move every other system off the node and didn't enter the name of the system they wanted to keep. They typoed it, and there was no check. The software didn't check to say this is a valid system, and that's what happened. So it's a human error plus developer laziness in not having the safeguards on the tools.
So let's look at that particular case, right? Soft, go ahead,
would have
finish.
not held anyway. Like it would have crashed anyway. Like even if they moved all the systems except that one off of the node, it would have run for like 10 or 20 minutes longer, and it would have been shit for the players because you could have like spammed your keyboard with anything and nothing would have happened because the server would have just been overloaded because it was an unreinforced node, and they couldn't move systems to a reinforced node without a restart of the system.
Well, I think their systems can like shuffle like systems off an unreinforced node. I think the system doesn't. It doesn't.
Well, let's look at
time.
Let's look at what we've got there, right? So we know they're on a VMware environment. They're on an ESXi cluster, right? We know two things, right? Not every system, as we see it, right? Not every solar system runs in a dedicated vhost, right? If you're in a dedicated vhost, you're just going to vMotion these things, and nobody loses connection, right? They had
all right.
So there's two different ways. So when you look at that, right, you need a way to safeguard and manage your movement of load balancing across your cluster in a way that safeguards your individual systems that you want to protect, and also reinforces the systems dynamically, right, that begin to become more busy, right? And by the way, there's a way to do that, but we're not going to go into that, right?
I mean, there is. Hadean was a good example of it.
No, you can do that.
Not the only example, but
yeah.
You know.
I mean, there's ways to reinforce and move load about ESXi clusters, but we're not going to talk about it. You need a way to do that in your future state, right? More effectively load balance your environment. That's something that's a topic, right? That's something you need to make this game more successful. Would you guys agree? Does that add value to you and your customers, right?
Like, yeah. So the like basically that environment needs to basically just go, like, not just for the super nodes. That needs to be basically like the entirety of the cluster needs to be in a vNode or in multiple nodes.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah, you need a way to more effectively enhance a busy system, a busy environment, right? And support that. That raises your level of people that can be in there, gives them a better experience on the end, right? By the way, I know how different companies like Wargaming and others did some of this stuff in the background. So when you look at that, so we've got kind of a couple things. We've got information that is not necessarily relevant to what's going on in the server. We need to dynamically throttle that, right? Those services may be solved the same way. We may cut services on a particular solar system for a period of time, or those services, if they're not germane to what's happening in the load that's growing up on the system, maybe they can be moved to a microservice type or not through the main server. So we're making the main server more efficient for those things that, like Sothrasil said, need to go through that single thread, right? Or they break.
And just to comment to chat, it is well known that this is not a problem that can be resolved just by upgrading the servers. It's just not cost efficient.
Yes, and Insidious, we know what VMware can do. We know what it can't do. We're specifically staying away from solving the problem, but talking about what those problems are, so we can dig into them a little more deeply later and say, hey, these are some options that we see could solve some of these problems today. Remember, we know it was built 15 years ago. A lot of technology didn't exist 15 years ago that exists today.
Let me ask you this question.
Go ahead, son.
Is it actually a problem?
What?
All of this you're speculating about, is it actually a problem?
I don't know. Do you think it's a problem or not?
I mean, we will always push the boundaries, right?
Yes.
When I started playing Eve, which was around the Tribute War, which was before the Fountain War, if you guys don't know, 2,000 people in a system was crazy.
Exactly.
1,500 people in a system was like max tie-dye. These
this
days,
this wall has
see that on every Tuesday.
Yeah, and this wall has a theoretical chance of actually breaking the former record, right? So we're already at the point Soth is pointing to. This whole discussion is a little bit moot because we will always need to push the envelope. Of course, that means that we will have to expect CCP to have some of the thoughts that Eric is talking about. But I think they have historically done that. It's just this time around, it's a different type of problem because we've reached a certain scale.
And we're talking about those different types of problems. And yes, I want 10,000, 20,000 people in a solar system fighting, and that to be the top.
I bet you, if you make us able to put 10,000 people into a system, we will still put 12,000 in it and crash it.
And good. And we can have this conversation again and figure out how to fix that problem, right?
Because
technology advances.
All this discussion
it's an endless problem. It's an endless issue.
It is like the discussion that comes up every single time the limit is broken, right? And it's part of playing Eve. And
So-
and this time around, I just think it's important to point out it might have been one of those flukes that McLeod gave an example of. Something went wrong. I was comparing this to what happened when the graphics designers put in a new design. I think it was on Missile Effects or something like that. And when that was tested on CC, they figured out that when you scale that, it completely breaks the server, right? And it had to be fixed. And they fixed it. So let's just give them some time and come back.
Oh,
to
by
it
the
and
way,
say,
I want you all to know, I did not conceive of this conversation based on that node crashing. Just so you know, that's not the way I conceive this. We would have had that whether the node crashed or not.
So I wanted to bring up a point, and I hate to bring it up because it kind of correlates to what happened yesterday. It kind of doesn't. But what I wanted to bring up was it seems to be a lot of blurred stuff of why the player base seems to be angry at CCP for things like yesterday, right? And I feel like one of the reasons is the past week or so, me and thousands of other EVE players have been having general connection issues with their server. And I agree with Eric with the whole idea that something happened, maybe something with the storms, it could be anything, is mixing with the wrong thing and causing things to be slow. But that, I think that's what is making this such an uproar right now. Because with YTech 2 last week, when we had that armor timer, there was roughly 3,500 people max in that system. And I will say that that particular battle was probably the best 10% tie-dye battle I've ever had, with no issues. Everything kind of ran like it was slow because 10% tie-dye, but everything ran smoothly as far as I hit F1 and 10 minutes later it actually activates. That actually happened. Things like yesterday, when I was covering yesterday's fight, for example, I would try to target the CubeStar to be able to look at, the percentage of health it's got left, and I would click it and it would not target. The server would just completely ignore as if I never even executed that command. And that's been kind of happening for the past 7 to 8 days. It's just at complete random, even when there's not fighting, there have been people, newbies in HiSec, reporting that they are executing these actions and the server's just not even recognizing that those actions took place. And that's one of the issues that we're so upset as a player base, is because we've seen a 3,000 person fight go 100% smoothly, and then all of a sudden you have these 2,000 or even 200 people fights that are destroying on the server for no reason. I think it was yesterday I was talking to Life on stream, and they were saying how 500 people, all 3 fleets full, jump out of 1DQ, and 1DQ gets tie-dye. Like the whole server is just kind of breaking this week.
You're talking about this like this is a new phenomenon, and
I mean it's not a new phenomenon, but it's been growing in frequency, over the years. Like I remember sort of 5-10 years ago, like you could take a full fleet and jump it through from one system to another. Yeah, we didn't have the kind of fancy sort of like fucking like a tunnel effect and all that kind of shit. But you'd jump and you wouldn't get like fucking traffic control. Like half the fleet wouldn't get traffic control. Nowadays, if you even dare to fucking take a fleet through a single gate and expect to not get traffic control, like you're fucking kidding yourself. Like half the fleet is definitely going to get traffic control. Some of them are even like going to basically drop for no reason whatsoever. Like I've had clients on the same connection, fucking clients on the same computer, that go through the gate completely fine, completely easily. The other one gets traffic control, doesn't even make it there. Like it's fucking ridiculous.
So there's again, the only way to combat that, right, is to understand exactly what your system's doing from the bottom up, right? Infrastructure through code, right? And you may or may not have induced issues of late or whatever. I get that. But what we want to concentrate on are what are the things that need not to happen, right? And then how would you potentially solve those comes later, right? You have to identify what you want to work on, prioritize them, and then look at what is the technical solution for those, right? And that's what we're trying to do. What are those things? That's a good one, right? We have inconsistent, we can summarize all that. We have inconsistent client responses in the same environment, right? For some reason, whatever that reason is, right? And we have to dig down and figure that. And I'm not sure I can make my mic that much higher, but let me look. So we'll see. Is that better, Sidious?
Eric.
Yes.
Who is going to do that?
We're just talking about what we would do and how we would do it and those things. Hey, if CCP happens to hear this and think one thing that we came up with in this show works for them and they can fix it, great. If they don't, whatever. But we're just talking about it and we're not complaining about it. We're like, if we were to solve some of these things, what are the things that we need to solve?
It's just that I get a little bit annoyed at listening to this because it's every single time the same story, the same type of reactions from the players, same tinfoil, the same blame game, the same mystery stuff.
But we're not doing that here, Caleb.
Hey.
No, I know we're not. I'm just saying that we always end up in these. What if we started everything from scratch? What if we reset the server? What if we made EVE 2.0? They've been wanting to make EVE 2.0 since 2005. It's like, it's ridiculous because it's not possible.
Yeah.
So it's about how can we heal this patient, not clone him and move his brain.
Hey, hello, Mr. Bezos.
And if people didn't realize, if people didn't I don't know how many of you took part in the third EVE Aether Wars test. Like, I'm fairly certain that I'm probably only in a fucking handful, and I literally mean a handful of people who may have potentially, were part of that. Not just on the show at the moment, but also collectively, including the people who are actually watching right now, right? I
have red
dots
disabled, but can you get to the point?
Okay, so CCP has been trying to figure out how to solve this. One of the things that they have been trying to do is trying to go through and look at new software solutions and new, basically just new solutions, by up and coming companies to basically solve the issue that we are dealing with currently. One of those was Hadean, and they were exploring the possibilities of that with Aether Wars. The issue there is they needed people. They needed people to basically create good, relevant data for them to do it. What happened? They created those Aether Wars stuff, and basically none of you fuckers showed up. So what do you expect? What do you expect?
In the player's defense, right? The fact that CCP did that is commendable, right? But they did it in the wrong way. The way they handled the whole process of signing up for it, the way that they didn't really do anything to properly high level promote it or incentivize it. The fact that they did this is where you give someone the login rewards that are useful, right? This is where you have the chance to say, okay, do this by word of mouth, where everyone sends invites to everyone that they know, and where people in the EVE community almost gets incentivized to rage ping each other, right? Because then something would have happened. It's exactly a similar criticism I had with Valkyrie. The fact that they didn't give us the option to Plex for a trial account was ridiculous, because everyone in EVE would have played that then. And it's the same with the exclusivity of the Console of Dust. They have just made so many of these small mistakes where if they had just talked to some of us, or even the CSM members, they might have gotten some of these ideas off the bat, and they wouldn't have made these mistakes. But they usually keep their cards too close, and then they stumble, and they don't understand why.
You realize I logged into EVE and got rewards for participating in the Hadean test, right?
Hey, by the way,
it was not promoted. It was not announced. It was not of a meaningful size where people say, "Oh fuck, I have to get there because I'm getting a."
Oh, sorry, I didn't get a billion ISK for fucking being on Hadean.
I'm talking about why not launch something like the pacifier that way.
Hey, I just got to say we have to thank Vsidious for his 100 cheers. I don't know if we did that earlier, so I got to do a little housekeeping there. And anybody else I missed, I'm sorry.
Don't you agree, Mac? Seriously, if there had been something like a pacifier, which was already abused with the pacifier gate, if people had gotten something like a pacifier for joining the Hadean test, don't you think there would have been like 5 to 10 times as many?
Well, I mean, I don't know, maybe.
Lapamac.
But then again, like, you know, you're. Sorry?
I was responding to Lapamac. They did simulate load. By the way, I was there for all the Aether Wars. I thought the experience was tedious at best. But again, Aether Wars, I mean, it was, when you look at what they're doing with that underlying technology, they are trying to solve some of the very things that we're talking about with distributed technology, right? You are on multiple servers, sharing the memory access, sharing the fighting queue across multiple servers to solve the issue of load so you could have more people, right? So if you were capable, if you could, right? If you could design a system that didn't need to be, as Soth says, single-threaded for everything, is that something of value in the gaming industry? And if you could solve that, you could really raise your ceiling and not have that ceiling conversation anymore, right?
I mean, other MMOs.
I mean, that's the ultimate goal. Sorry, sir.
Hold it, Soth. Yeah.
Yeah, like that's the ultimate goal, right? Is
no, I was pointing to Soth because he's so quiet. I can't make him louder.
Oh,
yeah,
so,
because people were complaining that I'm too loud.
I have you at 195% volume.
That's too much.
You're not too loud, Soth. Get in there.
Well, that's only because Soth speaks in such a forceful way.
Right. Other MMOs do that by just not having 5,000 people on the same fucking grid.
Right.
Sure.
But
Yeah,
I
because-
believe it's of value to design a system that could do it.
But that's consistently been proven that is the unique selling point of EVE Online, that they do this, right? That they give that service to the players. But as it's been mentioned more than by one in here, right? We know that if we bring 1,000 dudes, that's going to be 2,000 next time when the server's been upgraded, and then it's going to be 4,000, and then it's going to be 6,000, and it's always going to be pushed. And CCP have consistently.
Caleb, you're missing the point.
No, you're missing the point. CCP have consistently managed to actually find a solution. Let's remember that.
Yes. I don't think you realize how far Hadean Tech can push it. It can push it to the point that we cannot physically bring enough players.
I don't think
do
it
it.
can.
Soth doesn't
It
think
can. I've seen it working on servers in other games, not by Hadean, but by Lumberyard.
Yes, but
pushing. Hold on, stop. Let me finish. Pushing over 5,000 players at a 60 hertz tick rate.
Yes,
which is a hell of a lot more load than EVE will ever have.
Yes,
hang on. That's just there. You're just talking about basic processing. EVE has a hell of a lot of overlay and interconnected systems that it's always doing the math for every stupid idiot in the goddamn
horrendous. This wasn't a spaceship game. This was a first-person game, and it is doing the same, if not more, calculations for where people are on the map.
First of all, there's a lot more calculations going on in the backgrounds than just
sure.
This person is here.
So is the other game.
It really isn't. It really isn't. Like, I mean, you're not talking. You know, in EVE you don't have occlusion of like what you know. You don't have real projectile physics. You know, you don't have occlusion of those projectiles based on their trajectory. Like everything that you fire hits or is basically considered to be a miss because of a dice roll. Like you don't have the issue of like, you know, did a rock get in the way? You know, like did another ship get in the way? No, like you don't have any of that. So like don't sit here and say, oh well, EVE has like whole load more computations that they have to do. So do many fucking other games. Like it's just it may be a different type of orange, but it's still the same fucking orange to orange.
But isn't it likely that this is exactly why they're testing this? Because they want to make everything that goes on in space being maybe on something like this platform, and everything else is put in a different system, right? So basically, they instead of doing the one little transplant at a time, they're basically trying to do exactly the Frankenstein move, that Hadean might actually be able to give us.
I mean, Hadean wouldn't be a Frankenstein move, but it would very much be, if they move it onto that, they won't have to worry again.
So what?
As long as they upgrade the hardware, they're good.
Actually,
Point
no,
is that
it
when
becomes an N plus
when you
node
undock,
conversation,
right? If they
Alright,
made
I
it
gotta
so
bounce,
that when
guys.
you
I'll catch you
undock,
later.
Take care,
you're
Ryan.
basically
Thanks for showing up,
zero.
man. Appreciate your time.
My point was, when you undock, you are actually effectively logging into the Hadean system. When you dock again, you are on a shared system. That would be a Frankenstein move, regardless of what, if you don't like the terminology. But that is taking something that is right now an integral part of EVE Online and basically putting it somewhere else.
I don't think you understand what the
but
Hadean
Caleb,
stuff
like-
is.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be
So-
switching
but-
onto
but
Hadean
Caleb-
stuff by undocking.
Let me break
You'd be
here.
on it at all times.
Yeah, I want to address something Sidious put in there. Yeah, we are not talking about an AW to Azure example, because when you stick things into the cloud like that, right? There's a cloud overhead in that infrastructure, and to be honest, yes, they are extremely cost prohibitive. But imagine it's something similar, but it's not put on somebody's cloud system. You'd have to do something internally. And you guys are hitting on it, and you're hitting on it too, Barghost, right? With your Hadean things. In order to solve the issue of how many people that you have in system, right? You have to take the extraneous things that happen in system and drop them from the environment that you don't need. At the same time...
Oh, not just
Right.
that, Eric.
But let me finish, right?
Yep.
You need a system, and Hadean has to do this at some level, right? You have to understand what the memory cache for those environments are. And you have to have a way to share the locking and the memory cache across those environments, so that when you start things going down different threads, you can still keep the data consistent. Right?
And
And
again,
that is not an inexpensive thing to do. Right? We understand that that is extremely expensive, right? We also understand that those type of things can and do happen today.
Yep.
Okay? But they are expensive and it's hard. But if you could do that, which is what Hadean is trying to do, as an example in the gaming industry, you could essentially create the limitless node.
Mhm.
But
And again, you guys
but
can
is
try
that
to
of
shoot-
value?
You guys can try and shoot me down with techie talk that I might not understand, but the fact is that historically CCP has done this before, because that was basically what happened with Incarna. So they have actually managed to put something in the system that is basically a completely new operating code, right? So doing
Okay.
that with Hadean is definitely.
But they don't. But they
within
don't
the-
do that. But they don't. They
No,
don't do the
but
same
They
thing we're
don't
talking about.
do
but
what
okay.
we're talking about, Caleb.
But the point is that
No,
the
no,
only solution.
Caleb has a point here. They
He
keep
does.
doing
I'm
this.
not disagreeing.
They told us brain in a box will solve it.
Yes, but here's the thing. They were removing stuff at the time and shifting it elsewhere manually.
Well,
The idea with the Hadean system or AWS's Lumberyard, which they've now repurposed into doing a DoD contract, right? You know, is
Ooh.
it can manage. You throw hardware at it, it adds it to a pool, it throws it where it needs to.
Yes,
by
and I
itself
believe that it
when it needs
actually
to.
works when we're
does
seeing
work.
it actually work in a real life environment.
I have seen it work, Soft. McLeod
You have
has seen it work. I have seen it work on Lumberyard. Even the DoD contract came out, and when they were testing it, they were amazed because they were managing
yes.
a virtual battle space, like simulating a war between them and China and managing the entire fight.
Okay, I have to stop us. Okay, because I do have that 2:00 hard stop, and we're after 2. So, do you guys, the audience, members of us here, is this a conversation that we think we can continue to dig deep in and have conversations about, maybe for a show or two, a week or two? And is it worthwhile, the conversation? Is it interesting or not? And by the way, Sidious, yeah, I know you're talking about that and kind of like that. I just wanted to be clear for other folks that maybe didn't understand it. I don't know. Let me ask you guys one at a time. Bargos, interesting conversation? Not interesting conversation?
I think we've got to get more into the solution
And we
side.
can. That's later. I wanted to stay high level today.
No, that's fair.
Okay.
I'm just thinking in future, yeah, we do need to go solutions. So we can talk stuff like the Hadean,
Yeah.
multi-threading rewrite.
And by the way, I'm not going to say we're going to be right or any of it's absolutely capable today. It's where we would search for solutions. And Caleb, what do you think?
Well, I'm a little bit split because on one side I want this conversation, but I think the way we're doing it now is completely useless because it's basically flogging a dead horse. It's the oldest discussion in the fucking game. And if we're going to do this on a serious level, I think we need some people in here that can do ELI 5 of this stuff, tech level stuff, without going into the weeds. And we need to talk and have interviews with CCP's tech guys. What are they actually thinking? Where are they going to take this? And what were the results from all these things like Hadean? Because Bartghost might be very impressed and think that he's seen the newest and greatest solution since sliced bread. But I just don't believe it because CCP have been pushing the box since day one. They were always ahead of everyone else. And I was doing similar comments to Bartghost when the Carbon engine came out. And it just didn't materialize. So this is a more important and more serious talk than just this back and forth. And I read.
No, but this is how you start it, right, McLeod?
I think it's going in the same direction. I think the conversation, is definitely valuable in some way, shape, or form. Like, obviously, in that sort of conversive atmosphere, like you're gonna get good. You're going to get good points, you're going to get bad points, you're going to get people who don't quite see what's being said and that kind of stuff. And to bring everyone up to speed with all of this kind of stuff, but it's worthwhile. Like, I mean, just today, like literally this morning, I know it's just like a Hail Mary kind of thing, but like I literally just sent today like a tweet to Hilmar basically asking him like, hey, like we haven't heard anything about like your whole sort of like exploratory work with Hadean, like what's the deal with that? Like, is there anything that you could share? Like, did it come to like did it hit a roadblock? Are you making progress? Are you exploring other options? Like, what's going on? Mm-hmm. So maybe hopefully I'll get a tweet back, but like you never know. Like, as I say, it's a Hail Mary. I might get something back, I might not, but like I'd like to see some movement in there because like
And can I just do an apology? Because I had hoped that Well, I'm apologizing to Mifune for not talking so much about the war, and we didn't get around to that. Because we were supposed to talk about the coverage of the war and
we'll get to it
and all that stuff. So we get to that next week, and I hope that you can drop in on us then. Because
we'll schedule a segment.
An amazing job on Iron End covering it.
Like, as someone who's a script kiddie who's been writing nothing but Lua and C++ garbage for the past year and a half, listening to all this multi-threading bullshit has been pretty damn interesting to me.
Well, wait till the next show. So yeah, and by the way, Caleb brings up good points. I mean, we want to start this conversation, see if it was all interesting, number one. Okay, I'm saving two of you for the end here. And yes, we eventually at some point, maybe we pick some of these things and chit-chat Caleb with the CCPers like Convict and things that we know, see if they have any interest in digging into just concepts of one. Not whether they would use them or not, but how they play within the game and what CCP thinks about some of them. And Mifune, what do you think? Continue this conversation? You want to come back next week and talk about it too, along with your coverage of the war? We'll have a separate segment for that.
Sure, I'm down. I'll probably end up doing some research in between my schoolwork and whatnot, so I know what the hell I'm talking about, but I'm down.
Yeah, oh, by the way, this is a conversation that if you don't understand a concept, right, let's dig into it and talk about it too, right? And talk about it. Soth, what are you thinking?
I think it's the wrong conversation. There's a conversation to be had, but focusing on the tech side is the wrong conversation. You're throwing 5,000 players at a system and you're wondering why the server is going tits up, right? I think you should be wondering why there's 5,000 players in the system.
Right.
Because it's
Can we please not have more fuzzy solve?
No,
please, God, no.
I think his point is more
later.
Why do we fall on it instead of spreads?
Why do we fall?
Right. Calm the fuck down because we got a hard stop.
Yeah, we got a hard stop. Like I got to go do something, or I might end up getting divorced if I don't do this thing, guys. Got to go. I have to go buy an anniversary gift. She's in the other room. I can't talk real loud.
Good plan.
So what you're going to do is you're going to go to the wine cellar and you're going to get the best wine you can, and then that's your best anniversary gift.
I have a wine cellar. I don't need to go anywhere. I'm going out to get something better than wine.
Okay, then get the bourbon.
I have that over here in the
this
corner.
This is not his first rodeo.
Yeah.
I'll have you know.
This is number. This is
And the
number.
reason he's not disclosing it is because it's most likely sex toys or something like that.
No.
You could hear in his voice that he wanted it.
Nope. Can't say. She's right over there.
You can type it.
All right, folks. I will see you later. Thank you, gentlemen, for
Later,
being
Derek.
part of the
Thanks for the
conversation. It was a great participation. So, yes, a new drill. No, it's really it's a new vacuum cleaner, right? I'm going to the vacuum store. So, yes. All right, later, folks. Thank you for watching. Everybody have a great weekend. And, eventually we'll find out who wins this war.
What war?
I'm not sure either.
War?
War?
Invasion? What?
I don't know what you're talking about.
But did somebody shoot somebody?
Somebody shot somebody? Oh, no. It's the end. We're going away.
I heard
Bye.
Initiative